Captain Robert Mitchell kept his hands visible on the wheel as the Coast Guard cutter pulled alongside his fishing boat. But the young petty officer boarding seemed more nervous than he should be for a routine inspection. The morning sun glinted off the guardsman's badge as he stepped onto the deck, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning the modest vessel with unusual intensity. "You need to see some identification, sir," the petty officer said, his voice carrying an edge that suggested this was anything but standard procedure. Mitchell reached slowly for his wallet, noting how the guardsman's partner remained positioned near the radio, hand resting casually but deliberately near his sidearm. "The name's Robert Mitchell," Mitchell said evenly, handing over his captain's license and identification. He watched the young man's face as he examined the documents, saw the slight frown form as he read the name aloud into his radio for verification. "Stand by for identification verification on a Captain Robert Mitchell," the guardsman transmitted, and Mitchell caught the subtle change in his posture, the way his eyes kept darting back to study Mitchell's weathered face with growing uncertainty. The radio crackled to life with a response that made both Coast Guard officers freeze mid-motion. "Negative on that inspection request. Stand down immediately and await further orders," came to sharp response from their command center, followed by an even more startling transmission. "Is Captain Mitchell unharmed and being treated with appropriate respect?" The petty officer's clipboard slipped from his fingers, clattering onto the deck as he stared at Mitchell with wide eyes. His partner stepped forward from the radio, face pale beneath his cap, suddenly looking like he'd rather be anywhere else on the ocean. "Sir, I apologize. We had no idea," the younger guardsman stammered, his earlier authority evaporating like morning mist. "Command is asking if you require any assistance or if there's anything we can do for you." Mitchell remained calm, hands still visible on the wheel, watching as both Coast Guard officers struggled to process whatever information had just transformed a routine boarding into something approaching reverence. The radio crackled again with incoming traffic. "All units in Sector 7, be advised we have Captain Mitchell aboard civilian vessel. Maintain respectful distance and provide any requested support. Repeat, provide any requested support." The senior petty officer stepped back toward his cutter, speaking rapidly into his handheld radio while casting nervous glances at Mitchell. Whatever name recognition had just occurred was clearly far beyond these young sailors' security clearance level. Within minutes, Mitchell watched 2 additional Coast Guard vessels approach from different directions, their crews maintaining the respectful distance their command had ordered. The senior petty officer returned, his entire demeanor transformed from authority figure to something approaching awe. "Captain Mitchell, sir, our commanding officer is requesting permission to come alongside and pay his respects," the guardsman said, his voice carrying a formality that hadn't been there during the initial boarding. He stood straighter now, hands clasped behind his back in a posture of military respect. Mitchell nodded slowly, curious to see how far up the chain of command his name had traveled in such a short time. The approaching vessel was larger, flying the pennant of station commander, and he could see officers in dress whites gathering on deck. The radio traffic had increased dramatically, with multiple units checking in and requesting status updates on his location. Whatever records they'd accessed had clearly painted a picture these young sailors had never expected to encounter during a routine patrol. As the command vessel pulled alongside, Mitchell caught sight of the station commander himself preparing to board, his expression mixing professional courtesy with unmistakable curiosity. The man moved with the careful precision of someone who understood he was about to meet a legend whose reputation had preceded him by decades. Commander James Harrison stepped aboard Mitchell's vessel with the measured respect reserved for visiting dignitaries, his dress whites immaculate despite the ocean spray. He extended his hand with genuine reverence, his eyes studying Mitchell's weathered features as if trying to reconcile the man before him with a legendary reputation. "Captain Mitchell, it's an honor to finally meet you," Sir Harrison said, his voice carrying decades of maritime authority, yet touched with unmistakable deference. "I've read your service record, and I have to say, what you accomplished during Operation Neptune's wake changed naval rescue protocols forever." Mitchell accepted the handshake, noting how Harrison's junior officers maintained respectful distance while hanging on every word. The commander's mention of Neptune's wake brought back memories of freezing North Atlantic waters and impossible rescue conditions that most sailors only heard about in training scenarios. "Sir, I hope you'll forgive the initial boarding procedure," Harrison continued, glancing toward his chastened petty officers. These young sailors had no way of knowing they were stopping the man who single-handedly saved an entire destroyer crew in hurricane conditions. "Your reputation precedes you throughout the entire Atlantic fleet." As Harrison spoke, Mitchell could see more vessels appearing on the horizon, word of his presence apparently spreading through maritime channels faster than he'd anticipated. The radio aboard Harrison's cutter erupted with urgent transmissions, cutting short their conversation with the harsh reality of an emerging crisis. "Mayday! Mayday! This is cargo vessel Atlantic Dawn. We have lost all navigation systems in heavy fog bank approximately 12 miles northeast of your position. Repeat, we are blind and taking on water." Harrison's expression shifted instantly from reverent host to operational commander as he moved toward his radio equipment. The Atlantic Dawn was a massive container ship carrying critical medical supplies to overseas bases, and losing her in these treacherous waters would be catastrophic. "Sir, we have multiple vessels responding, but conditions are deteriorating rapidly," Harrison reported to his radio operator while glancing meaningfully at Mitchell. "The fog bank extends for miles, and standard rescue protocols are proving insufficient given the ship's size and cargo importance." Mitchell listened to the increasingly desperate radio traffic, his experienced ear picking up details that the younger officers missed. The cargo ship's captain was trying to maintain calm, but Mitchell could hear the underlying panic as the vessel continued taking on water in zero visibility conditions. Commander Harrison turned back toward Mitchell, his eyes carrying a question he seemed almost afraid to ask, knowing that requesting help from a legend carried risks of its own. "Captain Mitchell, I know this is highly irregular," Harrison began, his voice heavy with the weight of command decisions, "but standard rescue protocols aren't working in these conditions. The Atlantic Dawn is drifting toward the Graveyard Shoals, and we're running out of time before she breaks apart on those rocks." Mitchell studied the tactical display, showing the cargo ship's position relative to the notorious underwater hazards that had claimed dozens of vessels over the decades. The fog bank was expanding, making helicopter rescue impossible, and the treacherous currents were pushing the disabled ship towards certain destruction. "Commander, that ship is carrying 12,000 tons of cargo and has a crew of 32," Harrison continued, his professional composure barely masking desperation. "Your experience with impossible rescue conditions in Operation Neptune's wake is exactly what we need right now. Would you consider providing operational guidance?" Mitchell felt the familiar weight of lives hanging in the balance. The same pressure he'd faced in those freezing North Atlantic waters years ago when standard procedures had failed and innovation became the only path to survival. The younger officers watched him expectantly, their faith in his legendary reputation both humbling and intimidating. The radio crackled again with increasingly urgent updates from the Atlantic Dawn, each transmission more desperate than the last. Mitchell stepped toward the tactical display, his weathered hands tracing the current patterns with the precision of someone who had navigated these waters for decades. "Commander, you need to position your cutters in a triangle formation here, and here to create a sonic navigation grid," he said, pointing to specific coordinates that seemed impossible to the younger officers. "The fog is your enemy and your ally," Harrison watched as Mitchell sketched rapid calculations on the chart, his movements confident and decisive. "Use the cutter horns in sequence. 3 long blasts from different positions will give the Atlantic Dawn's captain triangulation points to navigate by sound alone." "But sir," one of the junior officers interjected, "the current will push them into the shoals before they can maneuver." Mitchell looked up from the chart with the calm intensity that had made him legendary, his eyes carrying knowledge earned through decades of impossible rescues. "That's why we're going to use the current, not fight it," Mitchell replied, his voice carrying absolute certainty. "We create a controlled drift pattern using the triangle formation as guideposts. The ship follows the sound corridor we establish, riding the current in a calculated arc that brings her clear of the rocks. Harrison nodded slowly, recognizing tactical brilliance when he saw it, even as his radio operators began coordinating the complex maneuver. The tactical maneuver unfolded with clockwork precision as Mitchell coordinated the three-cutter formation through Harrison's radio equipment, his voice cutting through the emergency chatter with calm authority. Cutter Alpha, sound your horn now, 3 long blasts. Cutter Beta, delay 5 seconds, then respond. Cutter Charlie, complete the sequence. The Atlantic Dawn's captain responded immediately to the sound navigation grid, his relief evident through the radio as the massive cargo ship began its controlled drift through the fog-shrouded waters. Captain Mitchell, your positioning is working perfectly. We can hear each cutter distinctly and are adjusting course accordingly. Mitchell watched the sonar display intently, calculating drift rates and current variations with the instinctive precision that had saved countless lives during his legendary career. The ship was threading an impossible needle between the deadly shoals, guided only by sound and Mitchell's decades of hard-earned expertise. 15 degrees starboard, Atlantic Dawn. You're approaching the narrowest passage now, Mitchell transmitted, his steady voice providing the confidence the cargo ship's captain needed to trust the seemingly impossible navigation solution. Harrison and his officers watched in amazement as the massive vessel emerged from the fog bank, cleared the shoals by mere hundreds of yards, and entered safe water where conventional rescue operations could finally begin. The Atlantic Dawn's captain transmitted his final position report as pumps brought the flooding under control and emergency repair crews worked to restore navigation systems. Captain Mitchell, on behalf of my crew and the critical medical supplies we're carrying, I want to express our deepest gratitude. What you accomplished today was nothing short of miraculous. Mitchell watched through binoculars as the massive cargo vessel stabilized in calm waters, her 32 crew members safe and her vital cargo intact. Around him, the Coast Guard officers who had initially stopped his fishing boat now regarded him with the profound respect reserved for operational legends who proved their capabilities under impossible pressure. Commander Harrison keyed his radio for a fleet-wide transmission. All units, be advised that Captain Robert Mitchell has successfully coordinated the rescue of cargo vessel Atlantic Dawn using innovative sound navigation techniques. 0 casualties, cargo secure, crisis resolved through exceptional seamanship and tactical expertise. The response from multiple vessels was immediate, a chorus of acknowledgments and congratulations flooding the radio channels as word of Mitchell's current operational brilliance spread throughout the maritime community. What had begun as a routine Coast Guard stop had transformed into a rescue operation that would become part of modern naval rescue doctrine. Mitchell simply nodded, already thinking about returning to his quiet fishing routine. Word of Mitchell's rescue operation reached Coast Guard headquarters within the hour, prompting a secure communication directly from the Admiral of the Atlantic Fleet. Commander Harrison received the transmission with visible amazement as he listened to orders that elevated the day's events far beyond routine maritime operations. Captain Mitchell Harrison said, stepping away from his radio with profound respect, Admiral Thompson wants you to know that your tactical innovation today will be incorporated into advanced rescue training protocols immediately. The sound navigation grid technique you developed is being designated as the Mitchell Maneuver in official documentation. Mitchell watched the young petty officers who had initially boarded his vessel, noting how they now stood at respectful attention whenever he spoke, their earlier casual authority replaced by genuine admiration for operational excellence demonstrated under pressure rather than simply historical reputation. The same radio channels that had crackled with emergency traffic now carried routine communications, but Mitchell's name appeared in multiple transmissions as other vessels in the area requested permission to pay respects to the legendary captain whose current capabilities had just saved 32 lives and critical medical cargo. Harrison approached with official documentation, his expression mixing professional duty with personal honor at being able to present such recognition to a living maritime legend. The official commendation from Admiral Thompson arrived via secure transmission, its words carrying the weight of institutional recognition that would follow Mitchell for the rest of his maritime career. Commander Harrison read the citation aloud as his crew stood at attention, their voices joining in respectful acknowledgement of operational excellence witnessed firsthand. Captain Robert Mitchell, your innovative rescue coordination during the Atlantic Dawn emergency exemplifies the highest traditions of seamanship and tactical leadership, Harrison announced, his formal tone carrying genuine emotion. Your sound navigation technique under impossible conditions has saved 32 lives and preserved critical medical supplies destined for overseas military personnel. Mitchell accepted the recognition with the quiet dignity that had characterized his entire career, understanding that today's events had transformed him from retired legend into active maritime authority whose expertise would be sought whenever impossible conditions demanded innovative solutions. The young petty officers who had nervously boarded his fishing boat that morning now approached with respectful requests for tactical advice, their earlier casual inspection authority replaced by genuine desire to learn from demonstrated operational mastery under pressure. As the Coast Guard formation began dispersing to resume normal patrol duties, Mitchell prepared to return to his quiet fishing routine, knowing that his reputation had evolved beyond historical accomplishment into current legendary status. Mitchell started his fishing boat's engine as the Coast Guard vessels departed, their crews carrying stories that would spread throughout the maritime community for decades to come. What had begun as a routine stop had become the stuff of legend, proving that true expertise transcends retirement and that operational excellence can emerge when lives hang in the balance. Commander Harrison approached for final words, his handshake carrying the weight of professional respect earned through demonstrated capability rather than historical reputation. Captain Mitchell, it's been an honor serving alongside you today. Your tactical brilliance under impossible conditions reminded us all why legends are made through action, not just recognition. The radio channels gradually returned to routine maritime traffic, but Mitchell's name would appear in official reports, training manuals, and Coast Guard academies as the architect of the Mitchell Maneuver, a rescue technique born from decades of experience and proven under the most challenging conditions imaginable. As Mitchell set course for his favorite fishing grounds, he reflected on how quickly circumstances could transform a quiet morning into a life-saving operation. The same waters that had nearly claimed the Atlantic Dawn now stretched peacefully before him, holding both danger and opportunity for those with the skill to navigate them. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where your experience suddenly became crucial to helping others? Share your moment of unexpected leadership in the comments below.